Welcome back to Creating Dementia Solutions. Richard Pyatt here. This is a Miles for Memories program. You may be seeing it on Access Vision or YouTube, or maybe you're hearing it because it's a podcast as well. So thanks. Make sure you follow Miles for Memories Michigan on Facebook so that you're able to see these alerts when these episodes come up and you're able to click on them quickly. You know, we spent all 2024 talking about caregiving and the importance of that. We're coming back to that conversation, in particular the notion of when that conversation needs to take place and making it a priority. Sherry Sherbin is back with us, founder and lead volunteer with Miles for Memories. Hi, Sherry.
Well, hi, Richard. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. This is one aspect, I think, of the caregiving conversation in 2024 that we sort of reserved for now, just to really think about it a little bit more, perhaps, the notion of making that discussion a priority. I think what you're saying is this comes in somewhere in the early stages of realizing that a loved one is going to need extra help.
Yeah.
And that's when we should prioritize this conversation. Probably doesn't always happen that way, though, does it?
Usually I think it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think part of the challenge comes into play is, why are we having this? Right? And suddenly you're put on the defensive when what you were trying to do is to create solutions. So as we start to look at caregiving, the role that family members can play, the role really that the care receiver plays in this process is also just as important in terms of their willingness to ask and or receive that level of care to support them right where they're at, rather than making the just initial jump straight in their head that, you know, change is afoot.
I presume then the conversation earlier is better,
yes,
even though that may not happen. But let's go on the record right now and say, start talking about it, right?
Well, you know, and whether it's dementia or, I don't know, some other chronic condition that you're going to be dealing with, as an adult parent, such as myself, having this conversation with my adult children now is way better than trying to figure out some of the details later on. So my adult children know what my wishes are today. Doesn't mean I can't change my mind, but here's the thing. Should some unforeseen circumstance arise, they know what steps to take. And it's not because I'm planning my demise, and I'm not planning on, you know, jumping off a cliff or anything, though it is a lot of fun. I did that when I was in high school. Into water, by the way.
Okay.
But the point is, the sooner they know and the sooner you have the conversation, the easier it is for the conversation to start. But it also, if they can help the kids to understand this and the adults to understand this, or the adult parents, it allows them to have more decision-making authority here, right? Rather than stealing away their rights or their decisions, it's empowering them to make those decisions, change them if they want to, but let's talk about them.
Yeah, and I think your point is, particularly in a dementia situation, the sooner the better, because they can participate more in that, as you've alluded. Let's just ask for a second, though. What if we just don't want to have that conversation? Now, you might have a caregiver who wants to have it and a care receiver who doesn't, or the reverse. How do you handle that?
All right, so it's generally not the most favored conversation to have, so let's start with that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes back to, and keep in mind, I am not a licensed therapist by any means, but what it comes back to is taking away your decisions, taking your ability to choose. And if you step up early, you can say, these are my choices, and I want and expect you to do that. And but if they don't know it, they're guessing, just like everybody else in the room. And so prefacing it in the right way can start that conversation. Sometimes that conversation starts because maybe a friend of theirs, a cousin, a family member of theirs experiences a life-altering scenario. And it becomes another opportunity to bring that conversation back up. Just, you know, I know your sister just went through this. These are some of the things they did. These are some of the challenges that the kids have. How can you help me today make sure you you don't have those challenges, or we don't have those challenges when that happens 50 years from now. I mean, you can bring some humor into it, right? A little bit of joy, some things that are a little disarming, if you will. It doesn't have to be overly doom and gloom, but choice.
Yeah. And part of the participation in the conversation angle of all of this means there's an opportunity for them to understand that you're trying to maximize independence.
Yes, exactly. That whole focus on maximizing independence, at the same time engaging all of the siblings, other family members, maybe maybe they belong to a church and they can help with some of the scenarios, or maybe they enjoy those outings and activities that they can participate in. But knowing who and what can become resources during a time at which it becomes very challenging to be that caregiver. Mm-hmm. It's exhausting. Yeah. It's heartfelt. It's loving. It's some feel as if it's a commitment that they're obligated to follow through on, and that's okay too. No matter why you stepped into that role, it's still something that takes your eye off your own health and well-being.
And there's one of the components that underscores the importance of this, the idea that if you're the only caregiver and you put all that weight on yourself, this is going to affect you at some point, more than just in the daily routine.
Exactly. So you can't give up your own doctor visits. You can't give up your own hair appointment, as an example. You need those things for you, and you can't neglect your own family that's at home. Because becoming a caregiver also, while it seems intentional or not, there's an additional financial investment by the caregiver, whether it's in gas going back and forth, maybe it's work that they've lost time at, maybe it's buying the extra pair of pants for mom that she needs that she can't afford right now. It's time loss, as well as in some cases finances lost. They're worth it. I'm not saying that they're not, but it needs to be, even in your own family, a full family decision and support. And by all means, bring your kids along.
And part of this conversation too, particularly in the notion when there's more than one child who may be in a position to help with the caregiving.
Yes.
I've heard it said it generally falls to one of them more than anybody else. That could just be by virtue of location or other factors. Somebody works more than another, or the job is more demanding, whatever the case is. Have you seen that to be true?
Yeah, very much so. And part of it has to do even with sibling rivalries.
Yes.
And the way that kids got along when they were younger, sometimes those begin to resurface. Well, of course you're in charge. Or of course I'm not going to show up. Or I don't know, even from long distance, that long distance family member can stay engaged and can do part of the process.
Boy, this certainly is true, and you can imagine that. And some of you are probably relating to some of this. Whatever that relationship was as kids and growing up, now has happened again.
Yeah.
I've witnessed it myself. One sibling who's in charge, right? And complaining that the other sibling doesn't help, and then the other sibling saying, she always wanted to be in charge.
You got what you wanted.
Got what you wanted, right? So these are these undercurrents. Boy, this is complicated, isn't it?
It sure is. And one of the things that can help with that is bringing the family all together. You'll hear me call it a family meeting. Sometimes you need someone else as a professional to come in and intervene at the same time.
How about that?
But if you have all of the siblings in the same room at the same time, making decisions, hearing choices from mom or dad or both, they all know, they heard it from them, what it is that they want. And so maybe it's Sue who's going to do the finances. Maybe George is the one who's going to take care of the outside of the house. And maybe Sylvester's going to close up, the camping site. And whatever the case might be, separate out the duties based on their abilities, not really birth order.
Yeah.
Right?
Whatever they're suited to.
Yeah. So you can't just assume you're going to manage the finances if you're first, when in reality your skills are in, landscaping.
Yeah.
So, you got to think through the logic of those, and mom and dad have to also be willing to say, you might be more suited for this, you're more suited for this, this is what I want in the end. So it's hard to have the conversation, but the more frequently you have it, the easier it becomes. The sooner you have it, the easier it becomes. And if the goal at the family meeting is to talk about what's best for mom or dad, rather than get back into some of those emotions that were so prevalent when you were growing up, it starts to help sometimes with the healing and at least making decisions in their best interest.
Well, so the example I cited may or may not have been my own family, but I can also say I've seen it the other way in my own family. Children who all three became, in this case all three, became involved in the conversation and supported one another. One of them was closer than the other two, but they were all involved in it and maintained communication and had family meetings and talked about what the steps were going to be. That's kind of the way you'd like to see it happen, isn't it? And it's the most helpful.
It is, most definitely. And learn, educate, educate, educate.
So Miles for Memories sponsors a caregiver retreat.
Yes.
Is this one of the main points of this, trying to help understand how to start the conversation, handle it among the family members, the siblings, whatever the case may be? Is that true?
Yes, so it is part of that. Also part of that day is really to give any caregiver the opportunity just to get away from their responsibilities as a caregiver today, right? So not only do they have an opportunity to learn things and learn how different activities can help in their own in-home respite programs, such as music, and how do we use it, and how does it give you a break even in the house, but also things to be enjoyed. So there's going to be a manicure and a pedicure station, and there's going to be a short massage area, there'll be a crafting area, just those things that are valuable to you. And if you want, you can go sit in the little reading nook and just have some time spending a little time alone with yourself, or in the labyrinth, and just a time to refresh. And then Miles for Memories will make sure that respite is made available. So whether it's an in-home respite scenario or whether we go into a facility so their loved one they know is cared for safely, if they don't have other options, because oftentimes they choose those other options instead, and that's okay. I do not want care to be a reason why they don't get a day to recover.
Sure,
and relax
it has to be in one of the immediate thoughts when you say, let's do a caregiver retreat. Okay, so now what happens with the folks whom they're delivering care, to whom they're delivering care?
Right.
This is one of the first questions, right?
Yeah.
So you've worked that out. So this particular event will be November 12th, 2025. If you're listening to this after November 12th, 2025, there'll be another one. So keep an eye on the Miles for Memories social media and Facebook for that information. Free to caregivers.
Yes. Definitely. And then registration is required, though. I need to know you're coming. I need to know if you need a caregiver before that morning.
Okay.
Right? So if we need to make arrangements, let us know the week before so we can get things all set up and taken care of.
And there's a number you can call to register, 269-979-1479.
Yes.
Try to make these rhythmic so you'll remember them easier. 979-1479 to register for the Miles for Memories Caregiver Retreat. That's November 12th, 10 until 2, so you won't be there for days on end, so it'll be a nice respite. And that'll be at Chapel Hill United Methodist Church on Chapel Hill Drive in Battle Creek.
Yes.
So very good.
And just so that folks know, the phone number does answer as Senior Times. They're one of the sponsors of the event, but we are then able to separate some of the different activities and events we have coming up from in that way.
And, something else to think about as you contemplate these things is the notion that somebody might say, I'm going to bring my loved one to my home and I'm going to look after them myself. This is a big decision and you have to contemplate this seriously.
Right. Safety becomes an issue in your own home just like it would have been in their home. So you need to make sure that you look at things like lighting, doorways. If someone's in a wheelchair, can they get through? The floors, have we removed those things that are barriers or risks for tripping and trip hazards? The kitchen, are they going to help in the kitchen? What's at their own height if they're utilizing a wheelchair? Do we need to up things? Or in some cases, it's helpful if you raise tops versus lower countertops, and how they can engage in that particular way. And access to the home. So that might mean we need a ramp. That might mean we need to change some of the ways we get in and out of the home, the door jams, what allows for easy transition from outside to inside, from one room to the next room. Do we have a lot of those seam covers that will make it a little bit more challenging to move from one room to the next? Even audio. Can they hear you from one end of the room of the house to the other in case something should happen? You know, intercoms become an issue. Is that important? You know, some of the electronics, there's a lot of technology that we can now introduce that can be helpful not only in the home but also for wandering when they come live with you. So a lot of things that you need to consider about how you may need to change your own home to make it safe for them to come there as well.
I think it might be a reflex to say they're coming home with me. But you just listed, just generally speaking, a few things that illustrate it's a serious contemplation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And an investment.
And an investment.
Yeah.
That very well could be. All right, Caregiver Retreat November 12, 2025, or a succeeding fall, we would imagine. So check Miles for Memory's website for updates on that. Yes. Sherry, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up in our next episode, be waiting for that one and watching for it, because we'll talk a little bit more about some of the ways that Miles for Memory supports the programs to which we've just referred. That's coming up. Follow us on Facebook and watch us here or listen. Miles for Memory's program, Creating Dementia Solutions. Take care.